It's all about truth. All of it. Every single thing. All boils down to the truth. We all want truth. The truth will set you free. All right, welcome to the broadcast, ladies and gentlemen. We are live. Today we are going to be talking about the new body cam footage that was just released from the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department. Now, this is something that we've been waiting for almost 7 months now, over 7 months in fact, and they have been essentially forced to release this footage because of the courts upholding they were facing being sued by a number of journalists and people who were demanding that this footage be released, and finally they've been forced to have it released. And joining me on the line to help me break this down is the one and only Leigh Stuart, our PFT East Coast correspondent. Leigh, how are you doing today?
So far, so good. Just watched this footage and a lot of questions, more questions than answers.
Yeah, me too. You know, I've spent the last 3 or 4 hours kind of combing over all of this footage. I believe there was 2.5 hours altogether released, and as far as I know, the police are going to be releasing more in the coming weeks. This is like a drip release of footage that they've said they're going to be showing, and so far we've only gotten the footage from about 2 police officers' body cam footage, and it's not even that great. I mean, have you noticed one of the guy's cameras is like facing his face? That doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
That was one thing I was going to bring up. Yeah, that's one of the points I was going to bring up. It's pointing at his face. That kind of defeats the purpose of having a body cam. I mean, sometimes they do wear them like on their helmet, or sometimes it's on their shoulder, but this one is directly pointing at his chin. I mean, what are we seeing on his chin? You're supposed to be able to, see any inconsistencies with their actions. It's supposed to back them up as far as protocol goes, that they're following their job, what they're supposed to be doing, and there's no inconsistencies with what they're doing. And it's pointing at his face.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of and goes against the whole point of having a body cam.
Totally. And speaking of protocol and the whole point of having a body cam, we're now finding out that the first police officer to actually breach the room, guess what? He didn't have it on. He failed to turn on his body camera. Surprise, surprise. We don't get to see what was exactly going on because the first guy in the room didn't have his camera on. I mean, this thing is getting stranger and stranger, it seems, as more of this footage comes out. And we are going to be showing some of the footage, and we're going to be taking questions from the chat in the chat window, so be sure to get your questions in, especially when we come to that point of taking the questions. But let me see if we can pull up some of this footage, and we'll play it for you. We'll play it for you now. This is what has been released so far to the public.
You let them know they're coming out. Do they know we're coming out? There's lasers on them. Okay, cover on that. In with you. Clear. Check under the bed. Thompson, I'm covering. Watch these quads. Watch your back. I got that. Turn over, doing another breach. Another breach. Okay, we got one suspect down, 419 inside. This is clear. Okay, what was the shots fired in here? Well, they did
just a heads up, guys. Leigh and I can't hear the footage right now. This is new software. I'm still figuring it out, but I am watching it with you.
Shares an address with the suspect. We can give you that address if we need to send units there.
I believe this is the part where the officers are, you know, they found his wallet and they're wondering if they should send some units out to his home.
Babbling Brook Court, and that's Mesquite, Nevada. Babbling Brook Court.
And it's funny because there's no timestamps on this footage, so who knows if it's in chronological order or if they have edited it between different times.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, quite oddly convenient for the police, if there is indeed, you know, a cover-up going on here, that they'd be able to not have any of the timestamp footage here. I'll full screen this again. We'll watch a little bit more.
I see a guy switching guns, not reloading. Switching guns, we're not reloading.
I got one wallet.
Is there a note? Did he write something on that?
Coming from gate 7. Gate 7. Shots are coming from gate 7.
Do we want to go to the event center or?
Trophy Reverend Officer Scott, Mandalay 9 northbound. Right outside Route 91, southeast.
Work your way outside now.
Here's where they're, you know, walking around in the casino
Go to the lobby
section, telling people to get out of there. There's a few moments coming up here, which I find pretty bizarre and interesting. When they go to certain floors, they run into other police officers. These are supposed to be the first guys on the
Stairs.
and they're just getting into the elevators now. And when they run up there, they run into others. They say, "Oh, friendly fire, friendly fire. We're police, put your guns down." And here, you'll see that here.
And also, the guy in the police car, he's getting reports that there's shots from gate 7.
Yeah. There was a lot of things said that can be picked up from these these guys' cameras. They talk about the windows not being smashed out. You know, some of them point out that that none of these windows have been broken. You can hear them say that. Here they're walking up through the stairwells, getting ready to head into, I think it's the 29th floor.
There are security and officers on this stairwell that are very spun up.
Metro Police, police.
Now here's the part where they walk into somebody else's room, and the people are in bed in one of the shots. You know, they warn them, "Hey, there's been a shooting. You better get out of here."
Yeah, and isn't that odd that weren't they on the same floor as where the shooting was apparently allegedly happening? Like, wouldn't the hotel send out, you know, or like a fire alarm would be going off if there was a mass shooting, like a mass shooter inside their hotel? Would they not warn their guests not to have their door wide open?
Yeah.
While there's a mass shooter running around? I mean, there's just so many inconsistencies with this whole thing. The people like have their door propped open and there's a mass shooter running around. I just
you would
don't.
think they would have heard some things at that point too.
Gunshots.
You know. Yeah. All right, I'm going to full screen this, and we'll tune back into this for a little bit.
Keep your eyes peeled as we cross these corners, okay? Go into where the lobby is. Right's clear. Metro Police! Please! Guns down! Friendly. Okay, it's friendly. Okay, we're gonna go back up to 32 if you want to clear the rest of this hallway so we're not aiming guns at each other. Okay. Let's just peek
I
down
believe this
way
is
first.
the part where they've encountered friendly fire.
We're gonna go left first.
And
the
there's another section
Rear guard,
coming
make
up
sure you're
with
watching no one come out behind us, okay?
men in black, you know, some guys in all black
Stay
holding
with us.
guns that they run
Stay
into
with
in
us.
the
Just
stairwell.
don't let anyone come out behind us.
Who are these guys? You know, what were they doing there? Not a part of the SWAT. Let's see if we get that in this video.
Watch out for blue on blue. Watch out for officers. No, I'm good. Oh my gosh.
I can't believe that one of the SWAT team, like this guy whose camera's on, his cell phone starts ringing. It's like, could that not, potentially put him in danger? If, he's looking for a mass shooter who's potentially armed and,
Police department.
trying to be quiet
Police department.
while
Metro
he's
Police,
trying to,
everybody
like,
okay?
maybe,
Okay, lock the door. Your door is
go
open.
through the
There's someone
hallways
shooting inside
and
the casino.
maybe sneak
Lock the
up
door.
on or find, be
it's clear.
quiet. And his cell phone is going off, ringing, potentially putting him in, a dangerous situation where a mass shooter might hear him coming, around the corner and could potentially open fire on this officer. That is a huge inconsistency I find with this, that his cell phone was left off, and like you can even hear like an operator playing in the background.
He just walked out of the room where that couple was lying there in bed still.
Okay.
And remember,
let's
these
move
police
back. We'll
officers
clear left,
didn't
and then we'll
arrive
go
on
up.
the scene till over an hour after the shooting started. So this is not far from the 32nd floor where these people were, and they're apparently just sitting here sleeping. It's quite bizarre. All right, they're entering the stairwell again. Let's full screen this and watch.
Metro Police. Metro. Metro.
All right, that looks like it might be the end of it. We'll tune back in if there is more to that footage, but I think that might be the end of that particular video that we had queued up. I want to go to the chat, and we'll get the chat up on the screen here for you. So if you guys are involved in the chat, you're going to see yourselves here on the screen. And I don't know if you can see that, Leigh, or maybe you can pull it up on the watch page. It'll be a little bit of a lag for you. But we'll keep an eye on this and see for any questions that come in. There's a lot of comments. And let me just try to scroll back and see if we can find any key questions coming in here. Somebody says you should interview where did that go? Should interview a real police officer and ask, is this how they do things? Even what you're pointing out is some good points. Yeah, it would be interesting to see what kind of protocol there is in place for these types of procedures. And if these particular SWAT members were going about doing this in the manner that it should be done. It seems like already they aren't. They're running into, blue on blue, they call it. Friendly fire they had to be weary of. So there's so many strange things. I mean, no timestamps on the video. It seems wrong, and the fact that they've had so much time to be able to, edit something like that out, says a lot, really.
And also the fact that the officer entering the room didn't even turn his body cam on. There is footage where he even says out loud, like, "Oh man, I didn't even turn my body cam on." And the one officer who has the camera footage pointing to his face is like, "Oh, don't worry, I caught everything you said." But this could be a moment, like, if he had entered that room and potentially, the shooter shot first. It could have been a matter of who shot first. Was it self-defense? These things are, potentially going to court, and things need to be under review. The fact that he didn't have his camera on is another huge inconsistency in this whole thing. And who is even to say that, this is even footage from the time that they're saying it was. This could have been a completely different situation, and we're just told that it was from the Stephen Paddock mass shooter, that the day in October.
Yeah.
Who's to even say that it happened on that day and wasn't recreated on another day?
Well, some
Just so
people
many
have,
questions.
yeah, there's a huge one right now that I have that a lot of people have. Some people have discovered the fact that when you look at the press photos that were released by a German tabloid showing some of the police tape and some of the food carts that were left out front of Paddock's room, allegedly that he had set up with cameras on it. And which, by the way, the man in charge here at the Las Vegas Police Department said that there was an internal investigation going on to find out how those photos were released. But when you look at a screenshot, and I'm going to pull it up right now, what we're seeing on the left here is the photo that was released by this German tabloid. The Las Vegas police certainly didn't want this out. And the photo on the right is a screenshot, a screen grab of the body cam footage. And you'll notice it looks very, very different to me. I mean, first of all, on the photo on the left, there's a couple of bottles of water there. The photo on the right, they're completely missing. The tablecloth on the photo on the left seems to be really raggedy and wrinkled, whereas the one on the right is completely nice and crisp. There seems to be silverware that's missing on the body cam screenshot, and there's no sign of a cord, a cord from the alleged camera that was set up. So this just raises so many more questions about the timing of their filming and what exactly they filmed compared to the photos that were released 7 months ago now. Have you seen this photo, Leigh?
Right.
And what are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I saw it circulating on Twitter, and then you sent it to me as well. I mean, if they stage a table, what else is staged? Like if they're adding props, they put 2 bottles of water there. That's suggesting that possibly 2 people are in the room or 2 people were involved. That's putting a narrative. That's controlling the narrative. That's maybe inferring that there was more than one shooter or, more than one person in the room at any given time. And that was a narrative that they were going with for a while, that the girlfriend was somehow in the room, or, that someone helped him kind of, get his bags up to his room or whatnot, or that there was someone else involved. Yeah, like if there's a table that they're setting a stage, who knows what else? How many more guns were planted in the room? What else was planted other than just water bottles?
Mm-hmm.
It's quite ridiculous.
Somebody pointed out in the chat here, it didn't happen on the 32nd floor like a lot of people think. There are employees that will talk. He is known how to talk to him. Well, some of the things that, some more inconsistencies with this so-called body cam footage of the room is also the fact that none of the glass in the windows appeared to have been broken, and we're not seeing the curtains, flying out the window like we would think that we're supposed to see. It's more inconsistencies there with the fact that there's seems to be no broken glass and there seems to be no curtains blowing in the wind.
Yeah, that is a good point. There's even a conversation between officers that say, how would he have broken the window? What kind of gun would have to have broken these strong windows? They even bang on the windows to show how strong they are. And the one officer says, well, it doesn't matter, any gun that could smash this window. I've never tried to smash a window at a hotel room, but I'm pretty sure like, the whole window would it not like shatter, or, there would be a giant hole. And there was no giant hole in any of the footage that they showed in this body cam footage. I didn't see any anyway. So, yeah. And also they had his address. They were actually talking about his address, and that they had confirmed his address. I don't know, 1 minute into the footage that you showed there, they were talking about where Stephen Paddock lived, and was also talking about his roommate. So I don't know what context that they were talking about, but they were trying to kind of piece together in that moment. I don't know how quickly that was, but it was in the first minute of that video that they had his information already. Was that because the wallet was found inside the room?
Right. Somebody here in the chat is asking, where can I see this footage? I mean, right now it's pretty much being covered by a lot of major news outlets. If you just Google Las Vegas police body cam footage, you'll find it. There's a number of it on YouTube already, and pretty much every mainstream media outlet source has posted the footage by now. I believe it was released yesterday, and as I said, they're going to be trickling out more and more footage over the coming weeks. The officer Lombardi or Lombard, the guy in charge, says that they really didn't want to do this. They didn't want to release it. He says because, the officers have to relive, the experience, and victims' family members. It's hard for them. And there was a lot of warnings saying warning, and he said this footage is graphic. We warn you. And there's nothing graphic in the footage whatsoever. And I think the police officers are, quite capable of reliving this situation. I mean, they walked around in the halls and then breached a room where a guy was allegedly already dead. I mean, it's not anything psychologically traumatizing for a SWAT team member, to have to relive.
Yeah, if you actually if you look up swatting videos, the one that was carried out in this body cam footage is not of the norm. They're like pretty calm. Usually there's like a lot of yelling going on. I've seen, swatting videos that have been caught on webcam of like, when swatting was a cool thing, when people would call the police and send SWAT raids to people's houses and then film them. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of yelling going on when they enter a room because they don't actually know what they're going to be coming across. And just walking into that room where those people were sleeping and just being like, yeah, there's a mass shooter walking around. I find that just so unbelievable that they weren't warned. How do they know that, they didn't know that they were in danger and there was no gunshots? I just find that so baffling that those people weren't concerned whatsoever. They're like, lock your doors. They had to be told to lock their doors.
Mm-hmm. And
it's just kind of odd.
Whatever happened with this? I think his name was Jesus Campos or something like that. The security guard who allegedly got there before these police officers and was having bullets fired at him through the wall and things of that nature. Wouldn't he be somewhere on some of this body cam footage? I mean, you would think that the security guard who was there before the police is going to show up on somebody's footage.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And there's so many questions. I don't know. He kind of went in hiding afterwards, didn't he? He wasn't leaving his house. He was not talking to any media. The whole story doesn't add up. And I think, 7 months later, there's still no motive. I think that's like a smoking gun in this whole story, is that there's still no motive for Stephen Paddock and why he did this. There's been, mass shootings since then. And, they have found, motivation for these other shootings that have carried out, and still nothing for the Las Vegas shooting. To me, it screams false flag. The largest mass shooting in U.S. history, and they don't have a motive, is one of the smoking guns in this whole thing.
Yeah. Someone in the chat just pointed out, Press for Truth, your volume is low in the mix, Dan. I believe I've corrected that. Let me know if it sounds better. I think I should be louder now. And don't forget to get in your questions, folks. Joyce Yeshua asks, it's scrolling by too fast. Let me see if I can get back to that. What was that one? Have there been any funerals yet? I would imagine there has. It's been over 7 months now. yeah, I'm not sure if you're referring to the victims or the alleged so-called shooter, Stephen Paddock. Um, yeah, it's. I'm sure they've already had those things. Um, and again, as you can see, we're monitoring the chat here. So if you do have any questions, I've also posted this on Steemit, my Steemit page. So I'm going to quickly just run over here, refresh that, and see if there's any questions coming in there. If you're not on Steemit, I'd encourage you to get on there, steemit.com/@pressfortruth. You can follow Leigh there also, steemit.com/@LeighStewie. And we are going to be taking questions from that chat window as well. So I'm going to be kind of bouncing around a little bit here. But let's get back to the chat, see if we have any new questions. A lot of comments.
Yeah,
The
fact that they waited 7 months to release this footage, and they still haven't released a lot of the camera footage around the hotel. I mean, it's a casino. They've got tons of cameras. They've only released maybe like not even a quarter of what they have access to, which is absolutely ridiculous. This is like something we see over and over again. They're not releasing camera footage when we know it's there.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was a few months back. They put out a few shots of him, loading up some bags, into the freight elevator or the service elevator, hanging out at the bar, doing a little bit of shopping, and casually, gambling. That's also something that's kind of bizarre for somebody who's about to go and do something like this. He seems pretty cool, calm, and collected as he was just purchasing snacks at the store and walking around in this casino, gambling and doing some high stakes gambling too. You wouldn't think you'd be interested in trying to win new money if you were about to do this. So the thing screams false flag to me as well. And we know that often when the CIA is involved in these types of false flag scenarios, there's always a patsy. There's always somebody who has to be the scapegoat for the situation. And how convenient that the first officer to breach the room didn't have his body cam on, and there's no word of or mention of what it looked like when he went in there, or who was in there potentially with Paddock. But they allegedly just find the guy dead after doing this. Why would he take the time to set up these cameras to see if when the police are coming, if he had an escape route, which the police originally believed he did, that he planned to try to get away, but it just doesn't make any sense, So it seems likely that there is a cover-up going on here. There's still no mention of a word of a motive to date, but what we do know is that they have been clamping down on Second Amendment rights activists and basically trying to turn this conversation into one about bump stocks, for example, and trying to ban the AR-15, which over 3 million Americans are currently in possession of, and events like this would turn them into criminals overnight. Should they be able to pass any legislation because of these types of events. All right, I'm going to...
Yeah. The inconsistencies between all of the witnesses and where the shots were coming from is another one too. And that the body cam footage wasn't even pointing in the direction of where we could see, even the footage that they've released of the room already, photos that they've released of even Stephen Paddock and, where are the shell casings of all these bullets that, he apparently unleashed on all these people. Was it not pointed at the ground because there are no shell casings? What exactly are they trying to hide? With all the footage or the photos, the still photos that they had released, you don't see any shell casings anywhere. And the fact that this body cam is pointing up or to his face shows me that, there is inconsistencies in what they're claiming.
Mm-hmm.
Completely.
Biddy BB, I believe it's called, says, would it not be better suited to change the word false flag for fake flag? Most terrorists don't use a country flag, but they invented on for all attacks, so better call it fake. Well, you know, I don't think you necessarily want to do that because it's a military term. It was derived from the military, and it's implied that flying the flag of another country is a metaphor for today's false flags, where really what that means is basically just blaming your political enemy for an act that you carried out yourself. So if you put in the word fake, that might kind of muddy the waters and confuse people as to thinking that this is some sort of, you get into the hoaxer, theories suggesting that, nobody in the concert died and crisis actors and stuff like that, which I don't believe is the case here. There's enough evidence to suggest that 58 people were killed, hundreds and hundreds of people were injured. There's blood all over the place. There's people screaming and running for their lives. And, I think it's more likely that this could be carried out by a black op operative, and then to have a patsy such as Paddock blamed for the attack. So I wouldn't necessarily switch out the words fake for false. I think false flag is more accurate because it stays true to the military definition of the term. Jim Leahy says, Dan, why don't you guys...
I would agree there.
Why don't you guys look at the numbers and the numerology behind these killings, including the one here in Toronto? Gematria and numerology is a huge part of the cabal's chessboard. Geometry, I'm sure you meant. Yes, that is absolutely true. There are often, occult numerology and things of that nature going on with these types of things. I have noticed in the press conference for the police, they refer to this as 1 October. That's the name of the investigation for this mass killing, and obviously it happened on October 1st. But 1 October is an interesting way that they constantly refer to this as. But yeah, that's something that's certainly interesting. And we'll keep an eye on. Macker 700 says, air pressure alarm go off? It's a good question. I don't know what these hotels are suited up with as far as their alarms, and how that all works. Obviously they have fire alarms, but I don't know what other kind of alarms this particular hotel was at, and maybe this is some of the things that we can continue to have released through Freedom of Information Act requests, such as the ones that forced, in a Supreme Court of law, for these police to have to release this body cam footage. These guys did not want to release the footage, but it was forced upon them because of so many people filing Freedom of Information Act requests, and finally one judge said, hey, okay guys, you have to release this. And then the officer, Lombard, whatever his name is, said, whatever we release here is not going to change anything that we've said, and but admitted that it's being forced upon them to have to release this footage. And then they said there's going to be more of it coming out in the coming weeks. So really going to be interesting to see if more inconsistencies start to just pile on, as they just raise more and more questions rather than have anything answered, because obviously there's still no mention of a motive. Their investigation,
right, and I think they waited. I think they waited 7 months, because they knew people may have moved on to something else. They like to distract people with other, the mainstream media does that on purpose. They'll talk about, switch to a story, something very quickly to get the focus off of something else in case they get found out about, whatever. Change the narrative very quickly. They know people have the attention capacity of a goldfish these days and can be easily distracted by other stories like Stormy Daniels, and people aren't paying attention to this anymore. They've moved on to the next thing, and they might not be apt to click on the body cam footage of the Las Vegas shooting. They might be onto something else, or might not even find it in their timeline on Twitter. I've noticed a lot of people not talking about this subject. They're focusing on other things, and I think waiting 7 months is also done very strategically. No one's really paying attention to the Las Vegas shooting anymore.
Yeah, I've been kind of surprised at the lack of coverage that I've been seeing also from the alternative media. I mean, I haven't seen, anybody that I kind of know and follow and pay attention to covering this at all. To my surprise, I mean, you and I here today are some of the only ones I've seen kind of talking about this footage right now. And maybe, yeah, maybe. That 7 month time factor comes into play here, but that's exactly when we need to continue to expose what's going on. When nobody else is paying attention, that's when we need to shine the light on this and say, hey guys, let's not forget about this. I feel so passionately about that when it comes to 9/11 as well. That's something that I never ever ever want to let up on, or some people say, man, get on with it. Like, that was, 17 years ago now. Like, let's move on. And no, I'm never, ever, ever going to move on from that one. We need to expose what happened there, the biggest false flag in our generation that we've ever seen. I think it's important to expose it, now more than ever. I mean, it never dies down in my opinion. Same with this kind of thing. 58 people died, So we can't let up.
Yeah. And 9/11, so many things happened as a result of 9/11. That's one thing that we definitely can't give up on. Like the NSA is now a thing. The Project for New American Century revealed all this, that they were going to do this. So yeah, 9/11 is a big one. And I get hard on myself because I'm like, it falls by the wayside, And it's your interview with Ed Asner, reminded me how important 9/11 is, and that I haven't really been focused on it, because there's new people waking up to 9/11 all the time. That they're starting to question it, and we need to be there to provide the evidence and the information for people who are just waking up to it. So, it's always going to be a thing. It's not move on. It's always going to be a topic.
When I was editing that interview for the Ed Asner interview that I did for that video, I had to watch all this footage again, and it just reaffirmed in my mind just how big of a lie it was, and what they tried to pull off for the people to believe. And, if they can do that kind of a false flag and get people to believe that the way those towers came down, just exploding and, huge chunks disintegrating in midair and just all the way down, to have people think that was due to fire for the first time in the history of steel buildings ever happening, it's absolutely ludicrous. And it paved the way for the wars in the Middle East, the clampdown of our freedoms right here at home. I mean, you can't even travel now without being molested by the TSA, when they've never actually caught one single terrorist. It's all just about training us to be obedient little slaves, and to understand that authority is good, Big Brother is good, you need it for your protection. And it's training the new generation, the next generation, to accept being treated like a criminal. And that's a lot of what these false flags are able to achieve. All right, I'm going to pull up the chat window again.
Yeah, and thinking that your government is there to protect you is just sickening to me when they're the ones orchestrating these things. Yeah, and it is sad for the generations coming up, because they don't know any different. They are learning about 9/11 in history books right now in school. And their narrative is told to them. They didn't discover it like we did, and they don't know any different. They know, when you travel, you have to go through TSA. That is nothing new. That's always been there for them, and that's dangerous.
Yeah, it's scary, man. It's scary what the new generation is growing up with. Um, Unbelievable what kind of things they can pass when they carry out these types of false flag scenarios. And you know, I don't know when we're going to get the actual truth coming out of 9/11. I don't know when we're going to get the true truth of, the JFK assassination and things of that nature. When enough time goes by, people just seem to get apathetic. They just don't seem to care anymore. And, I hope that's not the case with this Las Vegas shooting as it already seems to be. I mean, it's only been 7 months. Maybe, the time that it takes for people to not care anymore gets shorter and shorter and shorter as they continue to carry out more and more of these. And maybe the next false flag attack, people are going to forget about it, a week later. But we won't. Here at Press for Truth, I mean, we're going to, we're going to continuously shine a light on these things and ask these questions that the mainstream media is just failing to ask or has been ordered not to speak on, because somebody has to do it, guys. All right. Going to see what else we have going on in the chat. Hope you guys like this setup of having the chat window on the screen. You can see yourself and your comments and your chats in the video, and it'll be there so long, God willing, as YouTube doesn't delete this content and censor this type of information from getting out there. But if not, you'll be here in a PFT video for hopefully years to come. So make your comment worthwhile and get some good questions in there. Somebody says it's all Operation Mockingbird. Yeah, no doubt. PFT, you guys rock. Been watching since 2006. Oh, wow. Thank you, Jim Leahy. Been a long-time viewer. That's pretty much, that is when I started the channel. It was in July of 2006 when I first started this. And hard to believe it's been 12 years on YouTube. 12 years here producing PFT video reports, trying to get to the bottom of some of the evil, wickedness, the stuff that they try to pull off, like all these various false flags. And we have to be the ones who are there to shine a light on this stuff. Like we said today, this body cam footage really needs to be closely examined. All the inconsistencies with the table out front, the missing bottles of water, the glass not being broken in the windows, the first officer to breach the room, not having his body cam on, no timestamps on any of the police footage, so we can't figure it out. Where was Jesus Campos? I mean, the men in black that are seen in some of the footage with their guns drawn. I mean, so many questions right now, and none of it is pointing to what a potential official narrative motive is. But the police did say, Leigh, that they're going to release a report, a full, comprehensive investigative report once all this is said and done, and should be interesting to see how they play this off, and especially the things, the questions that I'm sure victims' family members are going to have as well, as more of this body cam footage comes out. It's just raising more and more questions than anybody's getting answers from.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's almost like, are they corroborating their story so that it makes sense? Is that why they're waiting so long?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's we know their track record, right? They have a history of covering up these types of events, and we know how the CIA operates with their black op operatives pulling off various false flags in order to, blame their political enemy, which sometimes is you guys. It's the American people, it's the Canadian people, it's the people of the world who they need to clamp down on, and sometimes they need the excuse to be able to do such a thing. Order out of chaos, which is something we've talked about here for a long time. It's the Hegelian dialectic. You create the thesis, you generate the antithesis to that, or the antithesis, so that you can offer your synthesis, and it's the problem, the reaction, and the solution. And it looks like the solution to this one, Leigh, is gun control. I mean, I think that's obviously the route they're gonna continue to take this one.
Yeah, it was the Las Vegas shooting, and then not long after the Parkland shooting. Yeah. So, and I want to make it clear that they might not always orchestrate these events. There is a difference between a false flag and a complete hoax, and a lot of people get those two mixed up. Sometimes events do happen, and there are crazy people out there, whether they're under trauma-based mind control or whether they are just unstable and mentally ill on medication, which the pharmaceutical companies are to blame. They might just hijack the narrative and gear it towards something that they want to accomplish that's on their agenda. It's not always orchestrated by the government. I just want to make that clear.
Yeah, and I think it's important to make the distinction, as you said, that hoaxes and false flags are very, very different things potentially most of the time, and we can't muddy the waters by mixing those two together, because now often when somebody talks about false flags, people in the mainstream will be like, oh, you're one of those nobody died, people, fake blood crisis actor stuff. And it's like, you know what? Sometimes real false flags happen. And it doesn't necessarily mean that this is a big fake setup, which I think people get a little bit out of hand with. I'm often, people call me a shill, and a controlled opposition for saying that people actually died, at this event, in Las Vegas. And it's pretty wild to me that that those kind of conspiracies have gained so much traction, that now I'm being pinned as a government operative for just suggesting that it was a real event, but it very well may have been a false flag event, not a hoax. Not that anything didn't happen, but that that this was carried out by a CIA black op.
Right, and those people that actually point the finger, the auto hoaxers, should be under a magnifying glass, in my opinion, because there are people put in this movement to discredit others as a whole, to discredit this whole movement. That in itself is a false flag. There's people put in this movement to distract and to make up stories to kind of discredit the whole thing, where the media will use them as an example to discredit all people who are, trying to get to the bottom of stories. And they'll use that narrative, like the flat earth thing. I don't believe the earth is flat. And I think those people were put in to use as an example to, discredit the whole movement. Like I said,
it's like
those people who are pointing the finger should be under a microscope themselves.
It's like the no planer theories that came out during 9/11, where people said there were no airplanes and that these were holograms, and that's a part of this psyop, this psychological operation that's meant to muddy the waters. Just like the term conspiracy theory was invented by the CIA around the time that people were questioning the JFK assassination, and they could just so easily, dismiss somebody as a conspiracy theorist for questioning official narratives. It's the same thing with all of these events. 9/11 had its psyop going along with it of so-called activists saying that there's no planes. And then now with these real false flags, we have psychological operations mixed in with them, where people are saying, nobody died, they were all crisis actors, the blood was fake or there wasn't any. This is done on purpose as part of the psychological operation to wear people down, to muddy the waters, to make it confusing for people. So we really have to just stick to what we know, stick to the facts, and just try to shed light on that so we can get to the bottom of, how they carry these things out and what their modus operandi is, what their solutions are going to be through this order
right, and
chaos.
it creates like a general mistrust of everyone. You don't trust your government. You don't trust anyone. I mean, you shouldn't trust anyone outright, but it kind of creates this divide in people where you don't know who to trust. You don't know what is real and what's not. You get to the point where you're like, I don't know what to believe, kind of thing. And that's why it's important not to even trust what I'm saying. Do your own research. Go out there and do your own research. But I promise you, the things that I have come across, I have vetted. I can tell you that, but don't believe me. Go out and do your own research.
Yeah, that's key.
I'll just point you in the right direction.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, yeah, don't take our word for it, folks. That's exactly what we're talking about here. You have to do your own due diligence, and you have to look into these things for yourself. And that's why we're going to include the links in the description. As soon as we're done this broadcast, I'll be sure to put some of the footage that we've alluded to earlier on that we showed. I will have a link to that 8-minute video, I believe it was. So you can watch that. You can break this down for yourself. You can see some of the inconsistencies that we've seen. And maybe you'll discover some things that you can follow up with in your own video, And as we said, they're going to be releasing more footage over the coming weeks. So we hope that people are going to continue to just put the pressure on them to get the truth out about, what happened there. So I think it's something we have to pay close attention to over the next couple of weeks, especially if nobody else is.
And do police body cams usually have timestamps on them? If not, they should, and we should get on them about that. Why aren't you timestamping your footage?
Mm-hmm.
They do for their dash cams in their cars. So why aren't they doing that for body cams?
Yeah, I wish I had it. It's in my car. I have a police issued body cam myself. I bought one, and it's like the size of kind of like a compact little cell phone sort of thing, and I use it for certain events where I can clip it onto the front of my backpack or bag. I leave it in my car purposefully for if I ever have to deal with the police while I'm driving. I can clip it onto my dashboard and film out the window. So I leave it there for that purpose. But yeah, I've noticed that yes, it has a timestamp on it, and this is a police issued body cam that comes with the timestamp. So in this footage that was just released, they would have had to have gone in and done the work to remove that timestamp. And you got to ask yourself, why on earth would they do something like that? Yeah. Why would they not want us to know the exact timing of when they breached the room to go in there to find Paddock dead already? Just doesn't make any sense. All right, guys, I'm not seeing too many more questions in the chat. If you do, get them in, because I think we're going to call this one pretty soon. We're going on just about an hour for this particular broadcast, so unless we get a few more questions in the next few minutes, we might just go ahead and wrap this one up. But Leigh, I mean, any final thoughts about this? I mean, we've obviously, over the past few hours, seen some major inconsistencies, the not broken windows, the table with the different tables. I mean, there could be logical explanations for these things, but knowing the track record of the government and how their official narrative usually has so many holes in it, it's like a piece of Swiss cheese. It seems that this is going to be another scenario like like the ones we've seen in the past, where they're lying through their teeth about the whole thing, and it may come out maybe years later, hopefully not that long, that Paddock was in fact a patsy and used in order to carry out the greatest shooting, loss of life in Americans' history. But hopefully the truth comes out sooner than later.
Right. The CIA is definitely complicit. We know that for sure. If these things are carried out, and they are definitely covering this up, like you said. No timestamps. That's a huge red flag. Very large inconsistencies with the body cam footage, and you almost want to ask yourself every single time who benefits. Like you were saying, the Hegelian dialectic. That's always a question you should ask. Who benefits from these things, and that usually leads you down the rabbit hole of things. And it is gun control in this situation, I believe, and not something that should be taken lightly. And we should definitely keep our eye on this. And whatever comes out, did he act alone? I don't think so. I don't think he could carry something out like this without the help of the CIA or the FBI. There's no way he did this alone. And they actually said that he didn't even reload. I heard the one officer, and I'm going to bring this up quickly. The one officer said that he didn't reload. He used different guns. He didn't take the time to reload. He just picked up another gun and started firing. I don't even believe that either.
That's right. He allegedly
had
multiple magazines in a suitcase. Yet, there was no reloading going on. Again, totally bizarre. Somebody I just noticed asked in the chat window here, what is a patsy?
Good question.
Yeah, for if you're not aware, I mean, it's important to understand what we're talking about here. A patsy is basically someone that you frame to take the fall for an event that you carry out. So if you're going to commit the act, you want to blame it on somebody, you want to frame them, and you want to make it look like they did it. That is what a patsy is. It's like a useful tool in your false flag operation, is to be able to have a scapegoat, is another term for something like that, where you can pin the blame on the patsy, the person that's being set up to take the fall. Is that how you describe it?
JFK is a good example. Yeah, JFK is a good example. The footage of Oswald saying, "I'm a patsy." That's famous footage. That he was set up.
Yeah, great point. Yeah, Lee Harvey Oswald walking around in the court right before he was killed, shortly before that, saying, "I'm just a patsy." Basically saying he's been set up, he's been framed, somebody else did it, and he is being made out to be the fall guy.
Yeah.
So I guess that's going to do it. We're coming up to just about 1 hour. So I want to thank everybody who joined us here in the chat. Got your questions in. Great questions today. Great to have you guys joining us here for the conversation. Leigh, I want to thank you again. Short notice once again, but that's how it goes in the world of breaking news. We never know when this stuff is going to hit, and we're always going to do our best to be there for you, the people, in order to bring this information to you. So I guess on that note, I just want to encourage people to check out the links in the description. If this is your first time checking us out here at Press for Truth, we do need your support. I want to be able to hire Leigh full time, and have her as an East Coast correspondent. But as you can imagine, financially, it costs a lot to do something like that. So if you want to help us in our efforts to beef up our operation here, check the links in the description to find out where you can donate. You can do that at pressfortruth.ca/donate, or you can become a PFT member or a PFT patron. You can contribute with Bitcoin. I have right here. If you scan the screen right here and you happen to be a holder of Bitcoin, go ahead and scan that, and you'll be able to contribute in that way. And every little amount helps. It's greatly appreciated, and it all goes towards mine and Leigh's efforts to be able to bring you this information. So once again, I want to thank everybody for tuning in. Stay tuned, because we are going to continue to track this as it develops. As we said, the police are planning on releasing more footage over the coming weeks. So we're not going to stop shining a light on this one. We're going to continue to to shine that light on the deeds that are done in the dark, and we'll watch them scurry like cockroaches as we continue to expose them for what they're doing. So, Leigh, I'll
Indeed.
say goodbye to you. Take care. And
You too.
and to everyone else, we'll see you again soon. Peace.
Thanks, everyone.